Namaskar, everyone, and welcome to the Australian IndicTalks. Here we discuss all things under the Australian sky from an Indic eye. Before starting today's session or today's talk, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands we from which we bring our talks in. Today, we acknowledge the Ngunnawal people and pay our respects to their elders, past and present. It's an indigenous cultural practice to respect or pay respects to whichever country we are in. And today we are speaking from Canberra, the place of Ngunnawal people. So today we have our local uh, Canberra public person, very interesting person, a man of many talents, Mr. Deepak-Raj Gupta. He is the lone political figure, prominent political figure in Australian Capital Territory, and one of the very few people of Indian origin or Hindu origin who has been in the active political life in Australia. So he came here in Australia as an immigrant a long time ago and then got into the Australian system as we would learn from him about his journey from then to now from in his own words. Welcome, Deepak ji. We thank you very much to accept our invitation and be the first guest of our podcast. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Avinashi, and namaste and good day to everyone. I too also like to acknowledge that we are gathered and this meeting is taking place in the land of Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodian of ACT, and recognize any other people or family with connection to the land of the ACT and the region. We acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and contribution they make to the life of the city and this region.
Thank you, Deepak ji, for that acknowledgement. As a starter, I would, because I came here as an immigrant about 13, 14 years ago as a student and then went on to the professional life myself in Australia. But compared to me, who came in, say, 3G, 4G era in Australia, you came here quite early. So your experiences at that time would be very different than what would have been our experiences maybe within last decade or so. How it would be very fascinating to learn about it. So would you be able to share what was it when you came to Australia? And from my memory, you came here in 1989. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
That's right. Yeah. Yes, Vinash, it's been a journey, I must say. I came as a student in 1989 to Melbourne first. So then, like any other migrant, it took me time to find my place. The initial teething which you have, especially for a student coming from India at that time and student coming now, there was a big difference. We did not have that much of exposure. You're talking about 3G, 4G. We came from the days of PCOs and all those kind of things. So the world was totally different. But I had a bit of exposure. I come from a place called Chandigarh. Chandigarh has some influence of people living overseas. So I had a bit of idea what it be and where I'm getting into. So as a student, when I came, of course, coming from a middle class family, getting a fees was a big enough investment for me, for my parents. Then I started looking for a job, and coming from a Indian family, you always think what kind of job you want because everyone in India as a graduate want to have a job with a tie. And people say, forget about that, the jobs you'll get will be blue collar jobs. So I thought, well, I'm in land where this thing is acceptable and I'm a student. So I said, all right, no problem, I'll apply. So first job of mine was to get a car wash in the car wash in Melbourne. So I used to wash cars. And yeah, it was a different time because there were very few Indians in Melbourne. And it was so good that sometimes people see you or meet you at the railway station or at the tram station. They'll take you home. And they said, oh, you're from India, let's come home, have dinner with us and keep meeting. So the acceptability was very, very, I would say, welcoming, not only from Indian diaspora, but also from the locals. Even that time, people didn't know much about India. Because when I used to introduce myself, of course, person of color, they used to say, "Oh, you're from Ceylon." I said, "No, no, no, I'm not from Ceylon. I'm from India." And yeah, it was totally different, and very less people. And even Melbourne was different city to what it was. It was like a bigger village, I would say. And but yeah, we got along, and I fell in love with the country. And I thought, well, a lot of ideas and all that resonate with me. So I then, well, gel well with the local community, with my study, with my work. I learned the people skill, and here I am, 36 years now.
Yeah. Talking of the community, like the recent statistics have indicated that in Australia, the total Australian population is like 3.2% of Hindus or Hindu community people here. So what was it back then? Like, because when we get to say Melbourne CBD now, or Sydney,
Mm.
or Brisbane, even Canberra, which is like smaller city compared to these big three, uh, we see a good amount of Indians. We see a good amount of shopping items, restaurants which are Indian. How was it back then? Like, it's very difficult to imagine, but when most of the Indians sitting in India, when we think of the overseas Indians, most of they think in terms of American Indians, because that's the
Mm.
most movie, or a picturized version of
Yeah,
Indians living
popularized.
abroad.
Yeah.
Correct. So, how was the community back then? Like, big community, small community. Like, was it much different to what it is today in terms of both spread and behavior as well?
Yes, in fact, it was a very small community, but it was a very well united community then. Considering you're talking about food, there was no temple. There was one Sikh Gurdwara was there. There was ISKCON, which related to Indians. There were only 7 restaurants in Melbourne that time, and one of the restaurant was Gopala in the CBD, which
CBD,
was,
yeah.
yeah, so Hare Krishna and all. So as a student, we used to go there. They used to get food for $2 or $3. But even though the community was very small, but as I said, they were very united. Like Sikh people will help Hindu community how to go about securing land with the Victorian government and how to set up funds and those kind of things. So people were eager to help, and it was like seen as a very united community, but very impactful. We were doing things in a smaller scale, but we were still doing like Diwali festival and other festival, Holi and all, maybe at somebody's backyard, not in the open, but we started to do that. People started to come along and say, "Hey, it's the 15th August, we should do something. It's Diwali or other holy festivals." So it started to start, but at very low scale, but it was a very united front we had at that time. Unfortunately, it is not the case now. As you can see, there are so many temples, so many gurdwaras, so many other institutes. It's just that if one is not happy, they say, "No, I'm going to start my own," and this
Yeah.
is where it reflects bad on the us for our generation, for the coming generation, and to the people that why we can't satisfy with one thing which we have, make it better, make
Yeah.
it bigger, make it impactful, make it useful, rather than everyone have it's like a startup, you start something, then it's not there. So we're not projecting ourselves well, that instead of having small temples or other religious institute, we should have one big one
Mhm.
which really reflect of India, of Hinduism, of Sikhism, and other religion. So yeah, it was there. Grocery and all, they were very rare that time. I remember I used to call my mom over the phone how to cook rice and other bit. So there was nothing that the palette we came that is easily available.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there were not many temples and gurdwaras like we have that they have open Saturday, Sunday where you can go and enjoy the feast
Mm.
or prasad from there. But
Yeah.
as I said, it started to change then,
Yeah.
and people started to migrating to Australia, and then we saw the influx of migrants coming in early 90s.
Mm.
And yeah, from there onward, I must say and appreciate and feel very proud that community has really come a long way. But we are one of the most progressive community in Australia at the moment, and I feel very proud of it.
When you mention one thing struck my head that back in the days when there were only landlines and probably the block phones in
Mm,
like late 90s, mentioned that the community was small but they were more united.
mm,
But as the networking increased, as the technology increased, as the digital presence increased, there's a bit of more branching which has happened, and there are a bit of more resistance which has come in. It's a bit ironic, but it's sort of not ironic, I would say, more contrasting really. Going back from that Indian or Hindu aspect of things, the it's not very surprising. Culturally we have gone through that, or we do that anyway. So a similar observation which I have even seen, even if my stay has been much shorter than yours. Continuing on to the next one, like you have been into different positions, you have been into different places in Australia before settling down in Canberra. So say compared to Melbourne, how, like, what's the difference in Canberra? Like, was it because I assume that you came to Canberra pretty early in your life, relatively speaking. So what did you feel like? Because to give a perspective to the viewers, even now, Melbourne is roughly 5 million people,
mm,
um, with a very, very big area. It's about 8,000, 9,000 square kilometers worth of area,
yeah,
compared to Canberra, which is not even half a million people,
yeah.
um, and surrounded at all sides by regional New South Wales. So, very starking difference, I would assume. Please do let us know.
Yeah, so I stayed in Melbourne for 14 years. So it's like your first love. Melbourne is still my first love. This is where I did a lot of laboring work, really sweated out myself. But it made me a person that I had a people to people skill and understanding of local lingo and all. So when I came to Canberra, that time I was in a white collar job. So I moved here, well established, and the community in Canberra was established as well because of the public servant. And so that was a big change from Melbourne to Canberra. Of course, the hustle and bustle of the city. Canberra was a very quiet place. It reminds me of '89 that, like in '89 when I came, Sunday used to be a ghost town. You won't find anybody on the street. Shops were closed.
Yes.
Everything was closed. Only thing was open was churches. People used to go to church a lot those
Yeah.
days. Still go, but those days was Sunday was purely
Yeah.
for church. There's no
And
shopping and all.
everything would close like 6 p.m.
Or Sunday is all closed.
Oh,
Sunday
okay.
was all closed apart from some milk bars in the corner of the street.
Yeah.
But CBD markets, grocery store, were all closed on Sunday. But it started to change, and they started opening 24-hour shopping, and then we started to see so many Indian grocery stores started to come up. Chinese, they brought different kind of vegetables to the market. Apart from peas and carrot, we start seeing some, Asian vegetables, which we use in our daily diet. So yeah, that's change was different. But by the time I came to Canberra, it was kind of well established community because of the work they were involved with public service. So they were well established than some of the people in Melbourne because they were already started and only thing they can do is start doing their own businesses and all and work as a laborer.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of, because your transition from that early stage, which you mentioned, like, changing from that blue collar work to the white collar, and this happens to every one of us, that, you go into a select professional and then a profession, and then you increase, you go
Yeah.
up on the ladder. Did you find that there was like a knowledge gap or culturally less knowledge in the local community here when you arrived in Canberra or in Melbourne compared to what it is now? But whatever. And to give you a context, like in coming from Victoria and in Melbourne myself, um, like until say last year, the issue of swastik would come up every single time, and it would be
Mm.
looked from the point of the Nazi symbol. So the Hindu community in Australia had to fight a big battle years together to get it recognized to the Australian community that, guys, this is a Hindu old cultural symbol and has been
Mm.
misappropriated as a Nazi symbol. So, keeping that bifurcated. But that's only one um, example. There are many such examples where we still see that is a bit of knowledge gap in the community up here. But was that even bigger back in the days? Like,
Yeah,
and
there
how
was.
how how bad that was?
It was quite bad. I won't say it was bad. It was not well known.
Hmm.
When the people I was interacting in Melbourne were mostly the new migrants, people working in restaurant or doing driving taxis and working on stores and all. So with that level, we can only think. The broader version was, why did you start this business? Why did you start collecting bottles and you know uh, do the letterboxing and those kind of things? That was something very easily available to the migrants that time, and nobody could think working in a government. First, you have to be a citizen and all those kind of things, and very qualified people came, but they couldn't get a job of their choice. So they then, of course, see, we got to accept there was a difference because we came from a different background, different environment, different way of working, thinking, and here it was totally different. Sometimes it's not that easy transition, even if you're well qualified. So we saw that of bit of frustration among the people who came from India, well qualified people. They stayed for 6 months and so, and they left their very cushy and very well paid job in India, and they're finding here say they have to work as a dishwasher or doing the small jobs. So that was a bit of disappointment, and there was not a good support. Not good, I would say, not a lot of support from the local government or Indian community that what should be the way we should go. If I look back, I see there are so many things people could have done, taken a small short courses, could have been in customer service, learn how to operate a till in supermarkets and all. But we never thought of that area or even go to work and work as a teller. Because
Yeah.
getting into bank is a very easy thing here. But we came with the mentality working in a bank is a big thing. But for teller, you don't need any qualification. They give you 4 weeks those days training, 4 to 5 weeks, and then you're a teller.
Yeah.
So we never thought of going there. But as compared to that, in Canberra, when I came, people say, "Oh, why did you apply for public service job? Start with APS 1, 2, 3," and that was an easy entry that time, getting into it. And when you get into that, there's avenues. There's more avenues open for you, and the government also assists you. So that was a big comparison between moving from Melbourne to Canberra,
Mm.
and it happened with me. I was here only for 3 weeks, 3 months, sorry, to on an assignment, and my wife followed me. And she said while she's here, she might as apply for some job. She applied for the APS job and she got it.
Okay.
So it was that easy transition, coming. And then when you get into it, you know that their training provisions are there, opportunities are there, you can do that. So yeah, that way Canberra had a totally different landscape as compared to Melbourne or even Sydney that time.
Mm. So all these experience, I would presume, would help you or actually sort of forced you, whatever the right word would be, into the political and public service area in Australia, I would presume. So, were these the primary ones, or in addition to that, have I missed some things which you would like to shed some
And
light on?
yes, so I was very active in India as well in politics, from my school days to my college days. So the politics was me, I think, from very start. But as a new migrant, unless you don't have your solid foundation, you can't think of it. So first thing was to have establish myself, make a decent earning, and then um, after my marriage, then kids came. So that was my prime responsibility. That was to establish ourselves as a family.
Yeah,
To buy a house, you had to give a deposit. Those where interest rate used to be around 9 or 10% as compared to what we got now.
yeah,
So settling that time was very difficult, and we did not have much support coming from back home, because coming from middle class family, the conversion rate, and most of people were, that time the Indian economy did not open, so
no,
India was
yeah,
still a very underdeveloped country.
and
Apart from few,
communication
yeah,
gaps as well.
communication gaps were there. Our exposure to the world wasn't that much,
Yeah,
so there were so many other things we have to adapt, and same time to make ourselves eligible for the opportunity. So it was a bit of a struggle. But I say community was small but very united, so they will help each other.
mm,
How to write a resume here, how to write a selection criteria. We never heard about selection criteria.
yeah,
How to do all those things. So that those things were different. So I was in the politics back home, but when I settled here, then I started working in a community level.
mm,
So I said, now I can afford my time to the community as well, because I always wanted to do that and used to do that in India as well, going to temples, gurdwara, churches, mosque. I'll do whatever they wanted as a volunteer. So then I became a president of Australia India Association of Canberra here. And this is where my interaction with the community and the government level started. So then I started organizing big events like Diwali Mela, Holi Mela, and do Indian nights where people of community will come together, meet, make new friends, acquaintances. So that worked very well. So it started growing, and we got a very good response, and I felt very satisfied as well. So this is I became a conduit between a government and the community. And after that, I started a business chapter here, Australia India Business Council of ACT. We had a chapter in New South Wales and Victoria.
yeah,
And with that, I had started having interaction with the politicians. So I started going with the business delegation to India, working closely with the High Commission here in Canberra, which is we are very lucky that it's just around the corner. And then they said, Deepak, you're so much involved in the community. The Indian community is really growing, and Australia wants to engage with them more because we have the same parliamentary system, same judicial system, British pattern.
yeah. The bicameral, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So that's how I started, and then Bill Shorten launched me at Parliament House. Said, we want someone we want a bit of a diversity in our party, which they believe in.
Yeah,
And from there, I got a ticket. I got didn't get elected initially, but then I got elected on the countback. And yeah, this is since then. I'm involved in the community, in the political system, and proud to say initiated some work which is not only benefit to the Indian community or subcontinental community, but also to the local community. So
mm,
recently, one of the bill which I moved in Parliament, it just been passed, is the immersion of ashes in running water in ACT. So it is legal now.
oh, great.
Yeah.
This
So
is
it's
because it occurred to me a long time ago. It when I started learning puja in Melbourne. So I was in conversation with Dr. Jayant Bapat, who is one of the
mhm.
very senior members up there, and
Yeah,
um,
used to be my neighbor
he
in Glen Waverley.
a small world then. So he did mention that back in 80s and 90s there was a big struggle because if somebody died amongst the Hindu community or Sikh
Mm,
community in there. There was no one to do the last rite, pujas and rituals back then. So he had to learn that so that he could pass it on to the community back then.
yeah.
And I couldn't imagine back then like how difficult that would be, because um, it has been told to be me by my father as well on multiple occasions that, you know, i- we are 10,000 kilometers from you. What are we
Mm.
going to, what are we going to do sitting that far,
In
because there is this
case, yeah,
physical limitation comes into way. Even if we get visa in within 24 hours,
yeah.
it's a huge limitation. So, it's a very good news that this has happened. And speaking of your legislative work, in numerous media, it's mentioned that you have put a lot of focus on environmental and cultural aspects in the assembly. So, I'd like to know what sort of like work that was, and you know, it's more to get a perspective of how the community can further help into that kind of work.
Yeah, so first of all, it was a big honor for me to represent, as a representation of an Indian community, the first Indian in ACT, and I think I don't know about the Labour Party as well, to be elected. And the second moment was that I was allowed to take oath on a Gita, Bhagavad Gita, which I had to make some effort because here you do in Bible, but
Correct. Yes.
yeah, so but I was allowed to do take oath on the religion I believe in.
Mm.
So my um, three things I concentrated from the very first, so education, health, and environment. So education is very important, especially for people from the migrant community. So I said we should have more accessibility and reach out to the migrant community to advise them, because we are talking about my experience. I did not have that guidance to guide them. These are the opportunities. You can do classes, extra classes, their CIT, their free courses, and some people wanted to have their own language as well. So introduction of language to the some of the schools, and then on the environment side, that I think our responsibility at this generation is to make sure what kind of world we're going to leave behind for our
Mm.
future generation. So environment aspect is very important, and it's very topical as well. So I
Yes.
talked about the water level, how we can do the
Mm.
conservation of water, and make sure we have enough for the future generations. So I make a move that how we can work to retain more water, because our dam level was going down.
Yeah.
And then also on the environment, the green spaces, and make sure carbon emission and all those kind of things.
Yes.
Then on the education, and then on the health, because people coming from subcontinent and from different continent, their health issues are different
Correct.
to the local ones.
Yes.
So that gain that knowledge and see where they can have accessibility on other issues as well. Coming as a migrant, it's not that easy to settle down. Sometimes there are friction within the family and all, because it's not easy, especially those
Yeah.
come with the family. If you come with a different view that you'll go, is somebody giving you a rosy picture, but
Mm.
when they land here, it's totally different.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so with the migrants, so I work very close with the migrants center. So I was the deputy chair of Migrant Resource Center here in Canberra. So through that, I started getting listening to the people, understand what their needs are, and
Mm.
then take that to the assembly and make
Yeah.
sure I make a motion out of it, like this crematorium here in Gangalan.
Mm.
It is made specifically with the needs of Hindus, Sikhs, Jain, and other community who believe, they have certain
Cremation.
rituals.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a morbid subject, but, we got to accept the reality
Mm.
that we have a system to say goodbye to our loved ones, which
Yes.
you can't do it here,
True.
So we can't have a body for more than a
Yeah.
day or so. So I moved the motion. Then I also did the uh, stone breaking ceremony to the crematoria here.
Yeah.
So now it's a public one. Anybody can access it. It's
Yes.
quite cheaper than what you pay in a private one. and
Yes.
you can perform your rituals there as well.
Yes. From a cultural point of view, we see this is very important. But in recent years, yeah, even among the say Caucasian population here, the amount of using crematoriums has
Yeah,
increased a lot due to
yeah,
a number of issues, economic issues,
yeah.
environmental issues, and
Environment. Yeah,
other things.
yes, yes,
So I truly think this would be one of these turning pages, or that milestones that having a facility here, because I do know that in Melbourne and Sydney especially, where um, real estate is a very premium thing,
beautiful. Yeah,
yeah,
for
so it's
cemeteries and all. Yeah,
cemeteries and all that, it's a massive uh,
it's a big
eco
expense.
yeah. And coming into in an era of recession from a long time, especially after the GFC, I believe it can even help the local non Hindu or non-Indian or
Yes, yeah.
non-subcontinent
We have
background
seen bit
people
of
as well.
increase. Yeah, we have seen
Uh,
increases there.
yeah. And moving on from this, like culturally speaking of culturally diverse population, I also understand that you work a lot with indigenous communities up here as well.
Yes.
And this is one of the dear topics to my own research and other things I do in my life as well. Um, Especially because as a member of that old pagan or similar cultures we have, there are a lot of commonalities between indigenous cultures here and the subcontinental cultures.
Mhm.
um, so would you like to share some highlights on that, and especially coming from the language background, uh, considering that we like as coming from subcontinent, we do speak or engage in at least 3 to 4 to 5 languages. Do you foresee, say, in local here, like Nunawan language, coming into mainstream in upcoming years as well?
Well, yes, I would love to see, and they would like to see as well. Um, we wanted that through the referendum.
Mm.
The government initiated, unfortunately, it didn't go through. Uh, but again, it is we work with the community, but again, same thing. They have to be given more exposure about it. It is coming from a very few quarter. It is not coming as a community need or what I have experienced. And until unless that force comes that will become part of it,
Yeah.
we will definitely do it because government is doing a lot on that front to make sure whatever possible help can be extended to them. They have extended, but it is a bit of a challenge
Mm.
getting through it because there are so many different tribes and they have different needs. So coming to a common point, sometimes it takes a bit of time.
Mm.
But on the business side, they are doing quite well. So they are, united on the business side of things.
Yes.
And this is where sometimes I work with them. That because they are like anybody, they are very smart people.
Yes.
But freedom is one thing is very important, and
Yes.
nobody knows best than us as Indian living
Correct.
under the rule for so many years. We couldn't do things which we wanted to do. Yeah,
Correct.
we didn't have that freedom of our mind
Yeah,
that we
and
can explore things.
the reconciliation as well, which was,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
So we,
So I don't know if you know. I watched a movie long time back, Indian movie called Khwaishes or something like that. They said the first flying test was done by Indian in Chopati in Mumbai.
yes.
So that movie was about that. The first flight. It was very short one,
Yeah,
but they did in
it's like some a Marathi guy
yeah
who did
Marathi
it,
guy.
and I
Yeah,
believe 1895 or something
that's right.
around
Well
this.
before the Wright brothers.
Yes.
But again, being under the rule of
British colonialism,
British
yeah.
colonialism, that person was not given the opportunity to grow from there.
Mm.
And now you see India is one of the incubator of
Yes.
invention.
Yes.
We have proved it. We have proved with the moon Chandrayaan. We have done with the Mangalyaan and IT, information technology. So many other things in waste management and you name it. We are champions in now in so many things. So that only came because of the freedom.
Correct. Yeah.
And same thing is with the local indigenous people. They are factor, they still think that they are not getting that
mm,
gong, which
yes,
should they be getting. But
yes,
again, community has to come together, and
correct.
people like you, government, and me who are trying to assist them, we can only do it. But it will happen. It won't happen
Yes.
overnight, but it will happen.
Yes, and to extend that, it's as I mentioned before, it's one of the dear topics to me, the indigenous, like working with indigenous communities
Mm.
here, especially into science and research where I work in. One of the things which I have uh, sort of seen, maybe completely not true probably, but it's because probably a lot of immigrants, we get so much stuck up in our work that we don't get to know about the indigenous cultures here, how the
Mm.
local culture, local nation goes around, what are the practices here, what are the cultural things here, are there any similarities between our old culture and the culture, indigenous
There
cultures
are,
here. So
and
I have been a very strong advocate of that, that we should know more about the indigenous people here,
mm,
and the people here should also know more about us, our culture here, so that we have the commonalities established, that we are more similar than we know or we are aware of.
that's right. And India, being the oldest civilization, the oldest religion, Hindu religion, Sanatan Dharma, which you're saying, the teaching are that you have to reach out and help people.
Yeah.
And that's exactly as the Hindus we should do. And I'm glad that a lot of people are doing it here. And the initiative you have taken and few others, I think we are in a position to give back and share our knowledge as well, because some of the issues are quite common
Mm,
between them and us.
yes.
So this is where there could be a synergy where we can move forward.
Mm. Um, as a role model, especially in the diverse, coming from a diverse background, and this is one thing, it sort of keeps punching me in the face, is that apart from you, I could literally count on one hand or maybe two hands that that many policymakers or political leaders in Australia of Hindu background or subcontinental background in that way. Like probably Lisa Singh is the only other senator I remember besides you. I may be wrong, may not know a lot, but uh, what sort of things sort of prevents this from happening, and what would you suggest that we increase our participation in the local systems, considering that a lot of us have become either permanent residents or citizen up here, and why is that, like, less participation up here in from the especially from the Hindu and Indian community, because if I see, say, for example, Middle Eastern communities or the African
Mm.
communities, a lot of those community members have come to Australia later than Indians or
Yeah,
Hindus, but they are more active in the public policy making and public knowledge exchange as well. So
yeah.
we would like to have a good guidance in that from you.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, Lisa Singh is from Fiji originally, and again, same thing. It is that with our community, first we want to establish ourselves. You have to make our foundation very strong. And we have seen that since we have done that in last 10, 15 years, we are seeing a lot of people have shown their aspiration to be a, political or a public figure, or in a part of the politics. And what restrict them is, and I tell everyone that it's a really good thing you have taken a very first good step that you want to involve to serve the community. But was what thing is very important is they have to understand the land of the law. You have to understand the politics. First, you have to understand which party, you think it suits your ideology, or where do you think you can be a good fit, rather than just throw your hat in the ring. And that's what is happening at the moment is they are throwing the hat in the ring, and then they realize, oh no, this is not for me. It doesn't meet my ideology, and then they try to jump the ship. Here in politics, you jump the ship, that's the end of your kind of political career,
Hmm.
because you never came prepared what you really wanted. So it is seen that you just want to throw your hat and just want to be a
Yeah.
politician, which is a very attractive careers to especially people coming from subcontinent, because
Yeah.
politics is a big part of our life. So I always tell we should first demonstrate ourselves as a united community. Unfortunately, it has not been perceived so far by the political parties. They seem again like a start as people want to start, but if they don't think thing doesn't go their way, they just switching the party,
Mm.
and that is a bad reflection. You got to
Yes.
have a politics is not an easy thing to do. Public life is not an easy thing to live with. You got to hear a lot of things. Sometimes you it's very derogatory as well. Some of the things you have to go through. Well, not only you, your family, your children. So it's not an easy
Yeah.
um,
So,
profession, I would say,
yeah.
where
Like in,
you're constantly under the scrutiny,
yeah.
and any you do 20 good step, but one wrong step will
Yeah.
bring you down.
It's like we have that saying in India, which roughly translate to that if you are in policy making and politics, you need to have a skin of a rhinoceros.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. You're right there. So first, you really got to think: is that for you? Because it's very difficult to convince someone. You come as a migrant to convince the local people and understand that they understand you. I would think there's still some section of the society doesn't want to, uh, you know, agree or give their consent to be you go in the parliament and represent them, and that's practical thing. You understand? It take time, and again, it's exposing ourselves, meeting them, and let them understand. Now it is getting better, but I think we still got a long way. But the people who are putting their hand, they really need to be very clear what they want,
Yes.
and is that for them, and they have to work hard for it. I
Yes.
mean, I stayed in the party for a good 10 or 12 years before I said yes. I think I'm ready to represent myself and my community, because I didn't want to make a fool of myself, and it will reflect that on the community as well. So when I understood the whole law of the land, the party, the ideology, and where I see myself fit, I said yes, I'm ready now because I can talk about it. Party will support me,
Yes.
and they did. So there's no point you go join something, what you want to do is not part of the party structure, and this is where the frustration comes, and then we see a lot of people are joining but dropping out, joining and dropping out. So
Yeah.
first thing is you got to do your homework quite well, that this is for you. Meet the local people, do some local work first, understand how the politics works here, then you think, yep, I'm ready now and I should give it a go.
Yeah. So, just on the closing bit, what's next for you? Like, do you think that you could have done, say, a couple of years ago that you want to do over next 5 to 10-ish years? And in extension to that question, um, as a part of that workup, is there something you would like to advise the upcoming young generation who would like to come into the public life in Australia?
Yes, I mean, I think I joined a bit late. I should have jumped a bit earlier to give myself a bit more time. But I'm still happy. I'm still working for the community. I'm still working on the business space with the city government, trying to, you know, bring their issues to the government and ensure that they are been looked after or has been executed so that people don't feel that they're neglected. For the younger generation, I really want the younger people to come up now. I think our first generation people is the time to pass on the baton to the next generation, and with diversity. I would like to see 50-50. I'm a big believer of 50-50. We want to see more women, young women, young boys to come as well and start try to understand what politics is. Being a politician or knowing the politics is two different things. You
Yes.
need to know politics, where the lot of decisions are made on your behalf.
mm,
A lot of decisions are made on your health sector, your education, your welfare, your well-being. This is where the decision is made. So if you don't
yes,
understand somebody's taking decision on your behalf, then just don't go and vote. Understand who will do for what for you. So do that research. When you go and vote someone,
yes,
uh, you do a lot of things. You scrutinize. Even when you go to buy vegetables, you scrutinize what you're buying. You're looking at the prices. They all know the prices are not good to this shop. You get better prices, better deal there. You should ask the same thing, that
yes,
whosoever is representing you, he or she will take your voice to their parliament. That is very important. Until unless you don't do it, you will be always seen as a vote bank,
mm,
and we will never get chance to express ourselves until somebody is there inside the chamber.
yeah. Especially for the first generation people,
Yes,
because as a first generation myself, we tend to get stuck a lot back home in the politics of back
yeah,
home, and we tend to look the Australian politics or policy making from that view.
that
But
angle, yeah, it doesn't
but
work.
the culture here is the political
No,
culture here is very different than
very,
in
very different, very, very
yeah.
different as compared to what we have come. And it's a very good political system here
Mm.
as compared to other parts of the world.
Yes,
But
very
again,
very reachable.
yeah, reachable, achievable if you can put yourself well, and it is easy to get your voice heard over.
Yes,
That is very important,
yes,
and I'm proud that there's a need came for on a religious ground for a temple. We managed to give them a land here so people can practice their own religion, and for the exposure to the kids as well. Some other issue on the health sector, especially from the ladies' point of view, they wanted that privacy and to express themselves better.
yeah.
So introduce a lot of lingual
Multilingual
interpreters here,
translation.
yeah,
Yeah,
the translations, and also they can express themselves because there's
yes,
still a stigma on few things with us. But this is what I want to erase from them, that if you are here, you're a migrant, you are one of them, one of the community member. Don't put a tag, you're a migrant. You are not.
yeah, yeah,
You're part of the society, you're contributing it, you're paying taxes, you're contributing on your work, you're
correct.
contributing to your society, your community. So you have to stop thinking that I'm an outsider. If you think outsider, you will
You'll
never
remain
able to
outside.
be part of the
Yeah,
community.
that's one of the things which I got to learn in when I started that. Uh, Although we have this that Indian background, in here we are Australian Hindus. So, but the main part of that is Australian. So
Yeah.
when you are here, you need to be here because your problems are of local nature and they will be sorted out at local nature.
Yes,
Mm,
definitely. You There's no point listening to the politics are happening back home when you're living here.
yes,
When you will live here, your children will live here. Your future is here. It's good to know what's happening, but also it's very important to know what's happening around your surroundings, which
correct.
people don't do, and that
Yeah,
is that is one of the issues. People don't know what's happening, what are the policies are coming. Is that good for me? Is that good for my children? So these are some issues they have to get involved, understand the politics, the policies, and then make their mind. Yes, this is what I want to do. You will have a better chance getting into it rather than just swimming in a shallow water.
yes, and it takes me back to the old culture as well. Like this is not the first time we have migrated historically speaking.
Yeah,
Like Hindus have been, like Bali Hindus. They
yeah,
developed Bali.
yeah,
It was not like, they came to Bali as immigrant and then went back to India. They
mm,
they established Bali as their home. So they became Balinese Hindus. They
yeah,
developed the whole culture there. Uh, Same thing goes to the
mm,
Angkor Wat. Like the temple did not like was not imported there. They
yeah,
become the part of which was Siam or core what is yeah at this time,
yeah,
and then they created that culture there. So
yeah.
probably at back in the history they were much smarter than the people current lot of us we have here.
Yeah.
much realistic.
No, no, definitely, definitely. Well, it's a start, and it's good what work you're doing, or your association trying to do. I hope it will reach out,
Sure.
and I'll be more than happy to assist any way I can.
Yes.
It will be a privilege to serve the community and make sure we become part of the society.
Yes. Thank you, Deepak ji. It was an honor to meet you, and it was a great pleasure to for you for starting our podcast with you as a guest. I'm sure in the future we will have many to come, and you will be able to uh, guide us further. Thank you and
Thank,
namaskar.
thank you so much, Avnish. It was a pleasure to be talking to you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening into this, and we will come up with more topics with Deepak ji and with many other guests on different topics under the Australian sky. Until then, have a good day ahead.